Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportBikeTrackHere.com, and today we're going to give you a close-up look at my latest bike build. This is my son Max Van's 2022 Kawasaki Ninja 400 SportBikeTrackHere.com MotoAmerica Junior Cup bike, inside out. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the obvious stuff, the exterior pieces that we're using. This is a MotoAmerica legal build, okay? Bodywork. This year, we went with Armor Body's race bodywork. I did some trimming to it to allow for the Woodcraft race clip-ons that we're using. We'll cover that as we get a little bit deeper into this, because I want to give you guys kind of step-by-step what we did to build this bike, what we used, and why we used it. Why do we use the Armor Bodies? Fantastic fit. It crashes really well. It's really flexible. And my man Reese Briotti over at REB Graphics already had the Armor Bodies patterned out for the kick-ass graphics kit that he designed and sent us. I put this kit on. I got to tell you, it's a lot of work, but the bike looks great this year. They're going to put another set on for us when we get to Road Atlanta. We're leaving actually tomorrow morning. I still have to load the trailer, and Max and I are going to head down there. So those are the exterior. We're running just a standard zero gravity windscreen. If you just kind of want to walk around the bike real quick. There is the rain light that we have to run. There has to be a switch on the handlebar if you want to kind of just detail that. That is like a motocross universal tail light, and I just rigged up a switch on the handlebar. As you come around the bike, we have to run the chain guard and the fender here in the back. There's a Woodcraft toe guard that we've got installed on it. Lots of cool bits, and I think the bike looks amazing. When we come back, I'm going to go ahead and peel the bodywork off and give you an inside-out look and talk about all the things we did. Okay, so let's break this down. What did we use? What did we do here? For gearing, I'm using the Vortex 415 chain and sprocket kits. We find that the 415 works the best on the Ninja 400. You really do need to stay up on the maintenance of the chain. You need to make sure the chain slack is correct, so you got to stay up on that literally all weekend. It does provide less drag. They just don't last really too much beyond a weekend. So that wouldn't be the most appropriate thing for track days. Like I find when I take Max to a Sportbike Track Time track day and he's out there ripping, doing 7 sessions, it's really hard on the chain. Like the chain it just mangles the chain. Like to use the Woodcraft wide body toe guard. These are the TST, and this is a part, we don't even have this on our website. These guys make some nice stuff. We need to get it added, but I'm using it on our bikes. These are the TST Superbike lifters and captive adjusters. There's a spring in here that makes sure that the axle blocks stay basically held in position, makes for a very fast tire change. While we're on the tire change, I'm using the Graves captive wheel spacers. On the brake caliper on the other side, the brake caliper mount, what I do is I channel out the mount itself, and I have a big shouldered bolt that I thread into the boss on the swing arm, and it just slides back and forth so it holds the caliper on there. That's a bit of a pain in the ass to do that, but that's what we do back there. I can change the tire on the back of this bike wicked fast. Rear sets. We're using the Vortex V3 2.0 on our Ninja 400. Obviously, we're in the GP shift pattern. A couple of custom things that I do to the rear sets. Just Max's riding style. You know, he ends up in some places he really loves to be all over the curbs. He likes to use some lean angle. So I shorten his foot pegs by 1 notch, and I shorten his toe pieces. When you shorten the toe piece, it takes off the boss that would hold the rubber on. So what I do is I drill through the center of it, and that's actually safety wired on. Speaking of safety wire, I safety wire the pivot bolt for both the shifter and the brake pedal on the other side. I also safety wire the retainer for the toe piece to make sure none of that could possibly move. Moving on to the quick shifter. This is the HM MotoAmerica legal quick shifter. We get all this, the HM stuff. We have more to show you. We get that from Spears Racing. Greg over there does a great job, right? Has some really trick stuff for these ninjas. A lot of it you can't use in MotoAmerica, but the quick shifter itself is mandated. This also limits the red line on this bike artificially to 10,350 RPM, which is kind of interesting. What I use for a shift knuckle here, this is actually the OEM shift knuckle. That one comes with a riveted on Heim joint. I have to grind the rivet off, and then I use that. I found that I got the best results from that personally. I like to safety wire. See if I can't roll that around. I don't have it on a stand, but I like to safety wire the counter shaft nut. I drill the counter shaft nut, and then I drill the washer behind it. Gives me a nice place to anchor that. Suspension. On the back, we're using the K-Tech shock. We get great support from K-Tech. Lenny Albin's there at the track. He helps us set up and stuff. It's been very beneficial for us. We're also using the Spears Racing HM data acquisition system. This is our potentiometer, our dash pot back here for the rear suspension. We'll show you more of that as we go through the rest of the bike. You come over here. I relocate the fuse boxes just here with a cable tie along the frame. I do as much as I can to tidy up the wiring. Here's the little mount for the control box for the quick shifter. Norton voltage regulator relocator. You have to kind of expose more of the wiring harness to and move that back. We have the Norton Racing soft pull throttle spring in here that really softens up the pull, makes it a lot easier to pull. Max likes that. GB Racing engine covers. We use them on both sides of the bike. Unfortunately, on the other side, they are still a little scratched up from some off-track excursions. We have new ones on the way. They just didn't make it as of the time that we're shooting this. Tank grip. Tech Spec. This is a brand new super thin material from Tech Spec. They sent us a few of those kits. We're going to be using those this year. Max really likes that. So far, we had a snakeskin set on the other bike. It was on there for years, since 2018. Stuff lasted and worked great. Obviously, you can use a block-off plate. So we have that. That's a Norton Racing block-off. There's Driven, Graves, all kinds that do the same job. On this bike, you have to install a restrictor plate underneath throttle body boots, right? So you get the rev limit is restricted, and also the air inlet is restricted with that restrictor plate. Moving forward, we use the Moto Holders fairing stay. I like this one the best. I got a little trick up here I'll show you when we lower the bike down too. Radiator guard. That's just a Cox Racing. We don't run an auxiliary radiator on this bike per my dyno guide, Dwayne Hoffer Performance here in Michigan. The temperatures that the data shows we're running at, the bike makes good power there. He doesn't believe that there's any benefit to that, and we want to also keep the bike as light as we can. So for that reason, we are not running the auxiliary radiator. Up front here, you can see the front fork dash pot. This is your potentiometer to measure the fork travel and speed up front. I use the Woodcraft axle sliders. K-Tech fork cartridges. If you want to come on over to the other side of the bike. This isn't a how-to, it's just kind of breaking down just what we're using. Spiegler brake lines are what we're using here. This year we went with green to try and stay contingency legal. Up here, coming off the master cylinder, this is our brake pressure sensor. This all goes into the HM dash, so we get brake, we get suspension, we get GPS speed, wheel speed, all kinds of AFR, all kinds of great stuff to look at. Brake pads, we're using SBS DS1 pads. We've used a number of different pads over the years. The ones that we landed on were the DS1 pads. Max likes the performance of those the best. For the rotors, the OEM rotor warps very quickly on the Ninja 400 if you're a fast rider. We've been using the Galfer and just the standard Galfer race rotor. It works great. We typically, each year, will just replace the rotors that we use. We have 3 total sets of wheels, so I start off with 3 sets of rotors. Norton Racing radiator cap helps keep the coolant temp a little bit lower. You can only use distilled water for coolant in the bike. There can be no coolant at all in MotoAmerica, so that is obviously what we have in there. A little Motion Pro recovery bottle. You can see that's just 100% water in the bike there. M4 exhaust, shorty system. They developed this one specifically for our program. You'll see a couple of teams are using it. Our dyno guy got, good numbers with this. That appears to be the direction to go in, so we're using that. Off the pipe, you can see we have the lambda sensor, and here is our AFR connection to the dash, where we're able to record all that while we're out on track. Spiegler rear brake line. And then we'll lower it down. We'll cover some of the controls that we use on the bike as well. Okay, clip-ons. We're using the Woodcraft Ninja 400 race-specific clip-ons on this bike. Max likes them in a little bit lower of a position, so we're using them, and they're installed under the top triple tree. When you do that, there is trimming required for the race bodywork, and for this bodywork piece that I'm using to hold the dash and then using to bolt the bodywork up. We'll talk about that in a second. The trimming that I do here on the bodywork requires removing, basically this piece in here, right? This is kind of finished off. That all needs to come out. And you can see I've done a pretty even job on both sides of doing that. Had a little experience from doing that last year. And we just find for our setup that works better, right? If you don't mind the clip-ons being a little taller, you can completely eliminate that by just running a different set of clip-ons, and you won't have to do any trimming at all. So this black plastic piece from the factory basically extends from here all the way back to here. What I do is I cut it all out. I cut these 2 pieces because these help to secure the bodywork right here when you use the armor bodies. So preserving those pieces, you just get better bodywork fitment. Up here, holding the dash, because there's no provision on this moto holder's fairing stay to hold the dash. And obviously we need to secure it. And this is super lightweight. I just trim it until we have good clearance from all of the controls, and then reinstall it on the bike, and I think that turns out pretty clean. Steering damper, if you want to come right down here, we're using the Öhlins universal steering damper with the Graves steering damper mount. Bolts right up, plenty of clearance. We've used the K-Tech damper with good results as well. Unfortunately, this year, the K-Tech damper was out of stock. When I went to go ahead and get that and install it on the bike, we were unable to continue doing that. This is also a great option and a good solution to that same problem. Motion Pro Rev 2 throttle, and with that Norton spring, that is just so light. Domino grips, those are super cool. Driven track day brake lever guard, little custom MV48 on there. That's pretty bitchin'. Max likes the CRG folding levers, right? We found those work great on this bike. He likes the feel, and sometimes they'll survive a crash with the fold up. Really depends on the type of crash that you have. Domino grips, just because they're badass. The Woodcraft custom right handlebar switch. This one's really cool because it also integrates the key switch eliminator from Woodcraft, so you get all that in one, so you save having the other plugged in on the bike. It's a good clean switch, looks great on the bike. Master cylinder, we run the OEM master, you have to per the class. And in terms of the clutch perch, some people will use a motocross style clutch perch. We're just running with the OEM one so we can use the CRG levers because he really likes the feel of those. Give you a look at the HM dash here. This is really the collection device for all the data acquisition. It also serves as a lap timer, right? Temp gauge, so on and so forth. You're able to go through the configuration on this and choose what you want it to display. This is a really nice tool, especially, for a younger racer. It gives them the opportunity to learn how to go over the data right, and improve yourself as a rider so that if you are good enough to get on one of the bigger teams in the paddock, all of them are using those tools. And if you already know how to use that when you get there, you're going to have a real leg up. Other little bits and pieces, Vortex Racing screw-on gas cap. It has a nice little lock on it. That works great. Nice part. A lot of great parts available there. And anti-gravity, lightweight battery. Max is heavy enough that we're able to do a couple of little things to the bike to lighten it up just a little bit. And the battery is a great way to do that. One piece that I did miss back here is our Norton Racing rear rotor. You know, that is a lightweight rotor. Max doesn't use a whole lot of rear brakes, so when you take a lot of that surface area out of there, it reduces the amount of stopping power you have from the rear. He doesn't really use it that much, right? So we're able to save a little bit of weight, and that's rotating mass on the Ninja 400, because you want to do as much as you can to try and make this thing as competitive as it can possibly be with the really tight rules for the engine. I don't do the engine. We have a local guy, Jamie Hanshaw Racing Engines. I tell him to read the effing rule book and build the motor. So that's what we have in there. Clutch. This one is key. The Ninja 400, when you go racing, the clutch is a weak spot, the OEM clutch. We have been using for the last 2 seasons the Yo-Yo-Dyne slipper clutch for the Ninja 400, and I gotta tell you, Fred's come up with a great product. Max loves the feel. If you've seen him, he gets some great launches with this. The maintenance on it has been very easy to do, and so far, knock on wood, we've never had a clutch failure. So that's something, if you're going racing with your Ninja 400, I would very strongly recommend that you do. So there you have it. That is our Ninja 400. I'm pretty proud of this thing. Turned out pretty good. You know, it's nice to have that opportunity to build a brand new bike from the ground up. Believe it or not, this is the first time Max has ever had a brand new bike. The bike that we were racing previously, all last year in MotoAmerica and the season before when we did 3 rounds, was a 2018 Ninja 400 that was our project bike. That bike had been down a few times. He raced it at Wira one time. The ABS delete shorted out under the gas tank. We had a little fire on the grid at the Wira GNFs. The bike was on fire one time for a little bit. You know, it had a pretty good amount of crashes. So this is the kid's first brand new bike, and it was a pleasure to put it together for him. Definitely a little bit of a labor of love. It's nice when you get to, you know, crew chief or mechanic and the rider is your kid, right? Definitely takes the whole experience to the next level. If you have any questions, if you're looking to build yourself a racing Ninja 400 and there's something I didn't cover here, you need a little help, please leave that in the comments section. I answer all that stuff myself, and I want to make sure you get the same result from your next project we got from ours.